I also want to talk about a new format that I want to try to go with moving forward with all my streams related to fighting games and how that ties into the FGC repository that I built on YouTube. But I always tell people that I'm a pretty boring streamer, and a lot of it comes into intentions, right? I really just stream for myself, especially when it comes to fighting games, getting salty, dealing with online ranked. Um, I am able to calm myself, process things better, be more astute with my reactions when I am streaming. So it's really, really good for me. I think most of the time not very entertaining for other people to see, especially because if you're looking for really big reactions like rage quits and that type of stuff, like that's what I want to avoid. And I've been able to do that, but as far as entertainment value, I don't have too much to offer there. Some people they vibe with me just being chill, and that's really greatly appreciated. But you'll notice that with a lot of these streams, like I'm never pushing people to subscribe or follow because I really don't have too much to offer. Um, so in one sense, that's been pretty good. Streaming has been good for my mental health. Fighting games has overall been good for my mental health during the pandemic. But how do I make this more productive? Back when I was coaching, and when I was first streaming, I tried to tie in like a little lesson at the end because I would often make comparisons to gaming and fighting games with my clients. And that sort of worked. And now as I'm pivoting towards coding, I had this idea for the fighting code. But instead of doing it at the end, I think a much more productive and better way for me to utilize this is to put it at the very beginning. So instead of trying to force that fighting game connection and metaphor after playing a long set, I think I'm just going to use this to kind of vlog about what I've been doing with coding and programming or what I should be doing. And hopefully this spurs more better time management and investment into doing all these projects that I should be doing. So the one that's best related to this stream is I play a lot of fighting games. How to make it a little bit more focused. I was thinking about what my friend Matt had mentioned. When I play Tekken, you should be focusing on punishes, and that's good. Because before I'd play, try to keep calm, try to be observant, and then clip those sets, put them on YouTube, and rewatch it for later. And that's good. I'm reviewing it a lot more than other people when they say they suck at a game or they just get frustrated. But how do we raise the bar? So instead of trying to just get a mishmash of like overall improvement as I'm playing, what if I designated what type of game and designated some sort of stipulation that I should be focusing on, right? So what I have right here is this loose slot machine. It's just the basic HTML structure. The JavaScript is in place. And hold on 1 second here. If you want to check it out and fork it on your own, it is on GitHub. We can check right there. But here's what's going to happen, right? Eventually, I'm going to add the CSS to make it more fun and exciting and animated to make it actually look like a slot machine that you might see roll. But in the first box, this is where we're going to get our game. And in the second box, this is where we're going to get this special rule. So, are you ready? Click it. So, the game that we should be streaming is Soul Calibur 6. And then, what should I be focusing on? Okay, interrupt. And the jab interrupt. What happens is, a lot of times, we need a block when our opponent's running along with a combo. But sometimes, instead of just holding block the entire time, waiting for that turn to be over, you can interrupt the opponent. And start your offense sooner. Let's roll again. Okay, Blaze Blue Central Fiction. Okay, spacing. All right, so we know aspects of rushing down. We know how to get in your face. We know about turtling. So those are the extremes, like in your face or completely away. Well, how about the space in between? Other people would term this as like playing neutral. And let's just roll through one more demonstration before we look at the code. Okay, so Soul Calibur 6 again, playing lame. So along those lines, instead of always being focused on offense, what about turtling up? What about playing keep away? What about trying to run down the clock and get a timeout? So these type of things, they're fundamentals. I think everybody would benefit to work on them. In the back of my head, I know that these are things that I should be working on to improve, but putting this at the beginning of the stream could be a lot of fun. What else we got here? A lot more fun, a lot more focused. Okay, working on making sure that my average hit combo is 5 hits, and so on. So if we look at the code here, again, nothing complex. So we have our div container for the slot machine. And then in there we have that box, which is going to be for the game series, right? And then we have the other box, which is for the rules and stipulations. And then we have that div that has the button that we're going to go through. And eventually, I have ideas to spice up this button instead of just clicking it. What if there's a text prompt? It tells you to input a Shoryuken input, or doing a charge move. Or before I was kind of slacking off, I was starting to look into voice commands and voice prompts. What if you just said Shoryuken, and then that's what activated the roll? And that's not that complicated to do. But again, when you're coding, putting it out there, really breaking down all the stuff that you need, it feels really tedious, but the more you sketch things out, and that way you don't even have to sketch it out in HTML just like this, pen and paper. Okay, what do you need? A box, this area, what happens in that area? If you do one action, what's the next thing that's going to happen, right? And if you go to most tutorials online, they rush through the HTML, then they immediately jump into the CSS, because the CSS is what makes things pretty. And I've been guilty of doing that. And people talk about their frustrations with CSS. The margins and display and whatnot. But everybody, and I'm talking to myself here, we need to do a better job of focusing on the JavaScript. So get the skeleton and then work on those nerve connections. Because once it's up and running, so we know that those spaces are there, when we click something is doing something, then you can spend all the time you want to make it look pretty. But if we look at the JavaScript just really quickly, okay. So we need to designate the areas. So the display, as we mentioned, in that box, something needs to be happening, right? For the rules, in that box, something needs to be happening. Then I need to establish an array. So what is our game pool? So I actually have like a long list of like different tiers. Well, let's just explain the basics real quick. So the games for sure that I know I want to be playing more of: Soul Calibur 6, King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited Match, and that'll be replaced if I ever get King of Fighters 15, Dead or Alive 5 Last Round, and that's substituting 6 just because my computer can't run 6. We have Blaze Blue Central Fiction, and then Million Arthur Arcana Blood, I think is the subtext of that one. And with those games come a list of rule stipulations, like I said. So I need to be working on punishing, need to work on interrupting, need to work on my spacing, need to work on anti-air, need to worry about 5-hit combos, need to worry about playing lane. But the function itself, super, super simple. There's dozens of different ways you could do this, but we put it with the HTML that when this button is clicked, we're firing this function of spin, right? So what happens when you spin? When you spin, that game area display is going to pull from the array. It's going to randomly pick in this array one of these spots. So you function, you randomly pick one of these array spots, one of these elements in the array, and you're going to put it in that display area, right? That makes sense. Even if you don't know code, you know that sequence in the flow, it totally makes sense. So not only are we doing it for the game, we have to do that for the rule also, right? So in your rule area, we're going to change that inner HTML. We're going to pull from our rule array. I'm going to randomly pick one of those elements, and the way to do that, math.random, right? We do math.floor just so we don't have to worry about decimal placement. So one of these random elements within this whole range. So the full range of the array. That's all that this is saying. Okay? Makes total sense. Even if you don't know code, even if you don't know all the nitty gritty, that overall process, right? What we're trying to do. In this box, we need a game. In this box, we need the rule stipulation. We need stuff to pop up there whenever we hit that button. So now that the space structure is in place, we can make it as complicated as we want to. And this is always the tricky thing when writing code. Like in my head, I have the idea of like how complex it could be, but then I get frustrated and I fall off because I never set up the foundation. So it's really, really important to have this foundation in place. Some of the comments I have here, I want to have different tiers of games. So this list of games, these are games that I love playing, and I want to make sure I play them more. But other games, like I'm going to have a whole tier, but like Street Fighter V, Killer Instinct, if I get that role that I'm going to be playing those games, I don't want to be pulling from this whole array of stipulations because I'm not as good at those games. And trying to focus on 5-hit combos, for example, with Street Fighter V when I should be still working on my anti-air, that's not going to make sense for me. So what I need to do is with those other tiers of games, I need to have a smaller rule set to pull from. So I don't know how to do that just yet, but I know that that's something that I want to do. And I can leave the comment there, so it's a reminder for me. It's basically my to-do list on how to add more to this project. Other things that should be happening. So I need to designate another space in the HTML, probably underneath the button, right? Because these rules, 5-hit combos, it makes sense to me, but if someone else was doing it, they probably need an explanation of what a 5-hit combo is. What does anti-air mean? What does interrupt? What does spacing mean, right? So I should have a display the explanation of those rules right underneath. That would make a lot of sense, right? Other things that I could do. Whenever a game is displayed, I should put in that game logo, right? That'd be great. So BBCF, I know what that is, but how much clearer it would be is if it rolled and there was the Blaze Blue Central Fiction logo that was popped up right there. So I'm really happy to get this in order. Again, anybody else who wants to build on this or you have any other ideas can always connect with me. But again, the thing that I want to highlight is this is not that hard. This is not that complex, but just getting started and taking the time to talk through the flow, super important. And just a reminder to myself, that's what I need to be doing